So good morning, everybody. Good morning. Paul Beradich. So in 2001, well, I grew up in Chicago, and in 2001, the Rav of the Chabad community, Rabbi Schusterman, Rabbi Herschel Schusterman, passed away. He was the Rav from the 1940s. He was sent by the previous Rebbe, the Schustermans, to the Chabad shul to Bnei Ruvain. So I grew up in that shul, and in 2001 he passed away. Then Rabbi Hertz, who was uh, the he was already put in as rabbi. I mean, Rabbi Schusterman already became the rabbi emeritus, so Rabbi Hertz became the rabbi, and he's the rabbi till today. And in the school that I was learning in Cheder Lubavitch, there was a custom that I don't know if it still happens, probably it still happens, that the Rav of the community would come and test the students, maybe once a year, maybe a few times a year. So I was in sixth grade, and and um, then Rabbi Schusterman just passed away. So now Rabbi Hertz was going to take on this opportunity to test the children, to test the students. Now he passed away in Adar time. So this how this all works out. This is why I'm saying this story. So what happened was we were learning in school, we were learning, I think it was Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, we were learning different halachas. On one hand, we were learning Purim halachas. We were also learning regular, day-to-day halachas. So we learned that men are not allowed to wear women's clothing, and women are not allowed to wear men's clothing. Now, but this was in other time. So what are we all thinking about is about costumes. So are we allowed? So right away, our question, we all picked up our hands, and our teacher, our Rebbe already, Rabbi Brackman, now he's the shliach at uh, University of Chicago. That's Obama's university. Wow. So, but no, so Rabbi Brackman already said, "Hey, I already know what your question is going to be." So he said, well, are we allowed to dress up like the other gender, or the opposite gender? Like we see sometimes, either babies or just for fun, people are dressing up during Purim on about of the opposite gender. So are you allowed to do that? So Rabbi Drachman said, "Hey, it's a great idea. Rabbi Hertz is going to come in a few days to test us, and he's the Rav of the community. We should ask him." So good idea. Now we have a chance to be able to ask a question by the Rav of the community. That's we're a little. I mean, we didn't think we were little, but relatively speaking, we were in sixth grade. So we're gonna ask the Rav. Okay, so he came. He was testing us on whatever it was on Gemara or different things, and no one asked the question. He was walking out the door. And I don't know if it was me, or I'm not sure who asked. Someone asked, "Hey, Rabbi Hertz, we have a question." And he turns around, yeah, what's the question? So he says, "Are we allowed to dress up like women, like girls on Purim?" And he smiled and he said, "Ask your local prominent Orthodox rabbi." And then he walked out. And then he walked out the door. So for many years, I thought, like, okay, it's a good question, and we're asked right on the spot. We're asking right on the spot. He doesn't know what's going on. Like, what is he supposed to say? So he just wiggled out of the answer by saying and made a joke because he just became the Rav, like as if like who are we going to ask? If not him, he's the Rav of the community. So he's saying, go ask the Rav of the community. And then he walked. So we all started laughing, but so that's the story. But we're going to see from here that actually there is a that's actually in the there's some Amar Makim that actually says that you need to make sure to ask the Tuvei ear, the people that are in charge of the community, to see you don't want to go against them. So actually, there is a mucker for for his answer. Okay, so first of all, so we're gonna go. This question specific. Yeah. Tuvei ear. Yeah. They're in charge of Allah. I mean, where is it? In Shulchan Aruch, in yeah. Yeah. I think the Rama says this. In pay on number 10. Okay, so let's start with number 1. So first of all, let's figure out what's the whole point of even dressing up. We don't dress up every day. We're into, looking presentable. We're
It's even our focus. It's really different.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's one of the proofs. Very good. Okay, so first of all, really this whole thing of hiding our identity on Purim and being out of the ordinary, that the Gemara shows that that's even within the Torah, to a certain extent in the Torah itself. So in Chulin, number 1, Chulin Kuf Lamed Tes Samad Beis, it says Esther min Torah Menayim. Where do we see Esther mentioned in the Torah itself? So in Dvarim it says Vanoichi Aster, that I will hide. Hashem says to the Yidden that I will hide from them. Aster, double hiding. So Esther, the name Esther is hiding, right? Esther hid her Jewishness. She didn't. Mordechai told Esther not to mention that she's a Jew, that she's a Jewess, and so really her name was Hadassah, but she changed her. Mordechai had her change her name to Esther, and that also alludes to the fact that she was hiding her identity. Okay.
Esther was Persian name. Her name was Hadassah. So why Mordechai change her name?
Oh, Hadassah itself is not a Jewish name?
Her name was Hadassah.
Okay.
But he changed it to Esther.
Right.
Why?
That's like trying to please.
Because we don't want to. We don't want the real. I mean, I guess you could ask also, why did Mordechai not want
to keep the name?
To reveal that she was Jewish.
Probably because he wouldn't marry her, if not for if she was Jewish, if he would know that she's Jewish, she would probably not be picked. And Mordechai realized that this is really part of Hashgacha Pratis, part of the plan to save the Yidden in the future. Like he already saw that there's a lot of random things happening that seems out of the ordinary. Like the whole thing with Vashti, etc. Okay. So there's another proof that the story of Purim is something to do with hiding or identifying ourselves as something, making ourselves look like something different. So in the Megillah we see some interesting story. So Shaul Talmidov is Rabbi Bishimon ben Yochai. The students of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai asked him a question. Why were those that were against the Yidden, meaning the Yidden that were acting not the way they were supposed to, in that period of time, in the time of the Megillah, why were they, um, why did they need to, why did they have even the possibility of being annihilated? So Omar Lahem, so Rav Shimon ben Yochai said, Imru Atem, you try to answer this question. So Omar Light, so they answered him, why? Because they they partook from the Su'uda of that Russia. In Cain Shabashushan Yehargu, but if that's the so Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai asked, well, if that's the case, so really only the Yidden of Shushan should have been murdered.
He doesn't talk about the Yidden. Son A Israel. He's talking about Son Hemshel Israel.
It doesn't mean the Sinai choice, and it doesn't mean the people that hate the Yidden. It means the Yidden that are not acting the way they're supposed to. So, but if that's the case, if the reason why the Yidden were supposed to be annihilated, if that's the case, so then really it should have just been the Yidden of Shushan that were murdered. Kollel and Purim, Al Yehargu, but then what? The entire Jewish nation should be murdered. So Amrullah, so they answered Amaratus, okay, if you don't like our answer, okay, so you go answer. We originally asked you because we thought that you have the answers. So you told us that what do we have answered? So okay, so we gave an answer. Now you don't think it makes sense. So good, it doesn't make sense. At least to a perfect. It's not a perfect answer. So you go answer. So Omar Lahem. So he answered because they bowed down to the to an idol. What's the story is?
Salem.
Payment name?
No, so the story was it was about Hanani Vashov Azaria that Nebuchadnezzar made an idol and the entire world bowed down to them besides Hanani Vashov Azaria, meaning that also all the Yidden besides them. So Amr Lahem, so him like also. Oh, so Amr Loi, so they answered back to him, V'chi Masi Ponim Yash, V'chi Masi Ponim Badavar. So then why actually were they not why did they not why were they saved in the time of Purim? Why were they actually saved in the time of Purim? What did Hashem was okay with bowing down to idols? So Amar Lahem, so he answered back to them, the truth is also Ella Lifnim. The truth is they didn't really mean what they were doing. Yes, they did bow down to the idol of Nebuchadnezzar, but they didn't really mean it. So if that's the case, so Hashem also did the same kunz, the same joke. They didn't. He only made it look like he was going to that the Yidden will get annihilated, but actually in actual experience they were not annihilated. Behind the dichsiv, like it says, he doesn't afflict them with his from his heart, meaning on purpose. Like he doesn't really mean it. He only does it for it to look like that way. So we see from here that what was happening during the Megillah is that we were just playing a game. Like the Yidden at the time were bowing down to that, but they didn't really mean it. So Hashem also made it sound like we were going to get annihilated, but he didn't really mean it. We did survive. So we see also again that there's some sort of hiding, kind of like a mask, kind of like a costume, making it look like we're somebody else. Okay, so now we see that something's going on with regards to Purim, and specifically about getting dressed up. So now we see that every day we don't do that, but okay, so Purim we do that. But then we actually see that there's some other issue. We see from the a few proofs, we see that actually during the Megillah itself, it's a good idea to wear Shabbos clothing, or Yom Tov clothing. So the Mishnah Brura on number 3, it says, it's a good idea to wear Shabbos clothing, and it's talking there about what's happening during the Megillah reading. So also in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch it says L'chvoid HaMegillah. It's more it actually says with regards to the Megillah itself L'chvoid HaMegillah, for to honor the Megillah reading. Yesh Lilboish. There are those that wear Big Day Shabbos even in the evening. So meaning not just the day, whereas the most of the main part of the mitzvahs like the Seudah and Simcha, all these Mishleach Manis and etc. Right, Mishleach Manis is best to be done right after Shachar, after reading the Megillah by day. So obviously it shows that there's mitzvahs are mostly by the day of Purim, but Kitzur Shulchan Aruch goes and says that we actually do it. We wear Big Shabbos by Megillah even by the night, not just by the day. Okay, so now we see that yes, there is a point to wearing costumes, but we should also have in mind, we should also realize that it's a good idea by the Megillah itself to wear Big Day Shabbos. I remember as a kid, there was once actually a younger kid that made a whole big deal in shul that he brought his costume, but he put it on the side here, and he was telling everybody that he's wearing Shabbos clothing by Megillah, and only after the Megillah reading finished by the night, he put on his costume, and he wanted everyone to know that he was.
That's nice.
Until today, he also likes to. This was like I guess 20 years ago, and till today he still likes to tell everybody what he does.
You still put custom?
No, but he's allowed. Well, he does a lot of good things also.
What if you combine it and you wear women's Big Day Shabbos?
Right.
So you cover all bases at the same time.
Right. Right. Yeah, maybe that's what I probably should have told him. Good comeback.
Okay, why did you come before with this?
Yeah. Okay, so now we see that there are costumes, but then the real question is what about wearing costumes that make us look like the opposite gender? So really the burden of proof would be say that we should, or we're able to on Purim, because like we're going to see that it's actually in the Torah itself that clearly states that we're not allowed to do that. So it says,
Torah states that we're to sit among, to do niyuf.
it doesn't say that in the Torah itself. It says that's more Rashi. But yes, you are right, and that's really that's what we're going to be talking about till the end. But okay, so in Dvarim, right, in number 5, it says, Lo kli gever al isha. A woman is not allowed to wear men's a pair of kalim, which really goes on like, let's say, like army army clothing, because it's more of like a men's clothing. Lo yubash gever zimlas isha. And so too, a man should not wear women's clothing. Why? Because all of these things, going back also around these psukim, are talking about a lot of things that are in Toyeva, I guess, abomination, abhorrent. It's like going against how Hashem would like things to be, or the way Hashem set in stone the way people are supposed to be acting, how we were created, and now we're going to act something different.
I got a question.
Yeah.
It's not better a woman wear a pant. It's more snooze-stick than a skirt, a mini skirt, or this skirt. Like this doesn't show anything. The pants is covered.
Well, we're not saying if something is better or not. There's a lot of things that are not allowed. So it's not like, oh, is it better to do one thing or do another thing? That's not really is that really the question?
No, the question is, if a woman wears a skirt and she moved here, she moved there, you can see her leg. It's like Torah. If she sit down, not
so that's
nice,
a separate thing. That's also. It's just like obviously there's two different parts to it. There's one is to not look like the opposite gender, and one is to also be respectful of the way Hashem created you, like to be respectful of Hashem's creation of your body, to cover it. Like that's two equally important things. It's not like what's better and what's they're both important. It's just like what's more important I don't know, to put on tefillin or to daven chakras. Like, they're two important
Go
things.
together.
It's right. So, but the question itself is inherent. It's problematic inherently because it's not even. Yes, okay, in certain cases. So then there's an nafka let's say in some specific cases where there's two choices, and if you pick one, then the other one will be put to the side. Okay, so then in those specific cases, then yes, there's the question, but to generalize the two aspects as that's the question. That seems
The Sephardi leaders who permit the women to wear pants are emphasize that should be like baggy pants, which are feminine. I think
right.
that's
Rabbi
why
Vadia has that's really the question. What you're referring to is really a tshuva of Rabbi Vadia. Right. He actually says, which yes, obviously that's true. Like our bodies should be covered in public. Right. But yeah, these are all important things that you bring up. Okay, but then Rashi goes on and says that it's not so.
Number 6.
Yeah. So why is it not allowed for a woman to wear men's clothing, men's apparel? Because then she will be looked at, people will think she's a man. And why would she do this? So that it will be okay for her to walk around the men, and the only reason why she would be doing that is to be promiscuous. So meaning it's like there's certain places that men feel comfortable being next to each other. Let's say in a men's locker room. Okay, so obviously men feel more comfortable being in the men's locker room, and women they wouldn't feel comfortable being in the locker room if there's women there. So, but then how will a woman be able to get into in such a situation if she makes everyone think that she's a man? How would she make everyone think that? By wearing men's clothing. So, and Rashi explains this is the reason why women are not allowed to wear men's clothing. Okay. And then the same reason, women won't feel comfortable in certain spaces with men. But if men want to get into those places, how will the man be able to do that by making people think that he's really a woman by wearing women's clothes? So, but then he says that really really this love that is said in the pasuk is really to not do things that are womanly, like cutting his pubic hair and things like that, which is more of a womanly thing. So it's not really talking specifically about clothing. It's really acting woman. Okay, so that seems like it's um less about going into certain specific places. In other words, making people believe that you're the opposite gender. It's really more of us acting in a womanly manner, even to yourself. So and then Rashi gives a caveat by Kitoyavas. Why is it abhorrent? Why is it abomination? Because like us of this whole issue of putting on clothing of the opposite gender is hameva if it will come to an abomination, meaning if it will cause someone to be acting in a promiscuous way. Okay, so then it's not allowed. So in other words, it's not inherently an issue. It's more what it's gonna cause. So now we see that there seems to be some wiggle room. Okay, so now we're gonna get to even further that actually in it's actually keep Oh, actually, in seven, it actually in number seven, we see in Shulchan Aruch in Yeridea in Kuf Pei Beis that the Mechaber goes and points out what we're actually talking about. We're talking about, right, Kli Gever. Kli Gever means manly articles like kalim. So it seems more not actual clothing. So
The word always says, uses the word given to blue clothes also.
but then here, um, it's talk right. It's talking about so Shulchan Aruch itself points out that there are certain types of hats or head coverings or army articles that are um more manly clothing, at least at that point of time. Lufi minhag hamakim ahu, right? And then all these different things are not able to be put on by women. And then the Ramah points out at the end, "Va'afilu be'echad min habgadim asur." Even let's say he has all his regular clothing that he wears as a man, but then he's going to put on one specific clothing that's for a woman. Even that is not allowed.
I got another question.
Even if, meaning, if people will realize, hey, this is actually a man, or this is actually, who the person is. So that seems to be negating what Rashi was talking about. That if the whole issue is that people will think that that they're the opposite gender. So if that's the case, okay, so just wearing, let's say, a wig, like a shaitel or something, that's an issue. Right. So but the Ramah says, which, right, like what you were talking about in regards to the Svardish poskim, the Ramah is really talking about the minhagim of Ashkenaz. That's when he goes and pops up with the Aga in the Shulchan Aruch. He's pointing out, hey, by the way, we in Ashkenaz act differently. We have a minhag differently.
But
So that's what he's saying, that in Ashkenaz we actually make a point. We don't even put on one specific article of clothing to the opposite gender, even if people will obviously realize that this is just that, I'm my own gender and I'm just wearing another article of clothing.
But a lot of Ashkenaz women put a shaitel, and top of the shaitel they put a head. That's exactly what he said. Don't put a head. The seven, he said, you cannot put a head like a man.
It's okay. Ashkenazim are also, it's okay.
It's okay for that? Why? So why?
They're a little paranoid, Ashkenazim. Sfardim are a little more.
By according to Rabbi Yosef, you're not allowed to put even shaitel. You have to take it.
It's a very holy person.
A lot of Sephardic women put. My wife put shaitel.
But there are also many holy Ashkenazic.
I don't say not holy.
No, I mean there's some poskim that happen to be Ashkenaz that are also very Yireim and Shleimim, a lot of Yerushalayim. So you're right. I hear what you're saying. What can I say?
You walk in Borough Park, most women they have a shirt and they have nothing down. I said you're not allowed to put the head.
We're saying that this is in situations where a person is wearing a costume might be in terms of women, You gotta have like school plays, like girls school plays, which is only girls in the play and only women and girls watching the play. I think like if they're doing a soldier, they'll wear a army hat or something like that. Is that permitted because they're in the midst of women only? So there's no danger that they might be.
If it's obvious, yeah, I checked actually. That's a good question, because the whole issue of Purim, the whole thing of Purim is that it's going to lead to Simchat Purim. So it's part of you could go and argue that the reason it is to bring to a mitzvah of Simchas Purim, and that's why someone would be wearing clothing of opposite gender. But if that's the case by a play, there's no, you can't go and say that the reason is to bring to a mitzvah. It's not specifically, it's just, there happens to be only women in the play, and in the play, in the story, there's men in the story. So, they need to wear men's clothing. So what happens is that they wear clothing that is, that it's obvious that it's not even men's clothing. Let's say if they're gonna wear pants, they would wear, let's say, um, like either very baggy pants or dresses that are like then sewn like in the like lower down or something like that to make it look like it's kind of like pants. I I don't know exactly the reasoning one way or the other, but that's Lapoyo, that's what they do. Um, Probably they asked the Rav, so it's probably okay. Okay, but then we are going to go to the next thing. If we see that right now that it's not allowed, that we're not allowed to, but then what happens during Purim? What happened was Mari Mintz, this was like many years ago, and he writes that I didn't quote him here, well, to a certain extent. And he said, right, kind of like in number 10, like the Shulchan Aruch quotes him. And he says that, hey, for the last few years, or tens of years, we see that during a simcha, during a chasna, in order to do like what we call today shtick, like to get to the chasna kala to be happy, even though it seems kind of funny that like the chasna kala need some random people to make them happy. Obviously, they're happy to get married to each other. So what? Like, but whatever. That's what people do. That simchas chasna kala is obviously a very important mitzvah. So everyone goes and tries to get the chasna kala to be. Seems kind of.
Well, the question: who was the first person in the Tanakh that put the mask? Masecha.
Moshe,
Moshe Rabbeinu.
and he was a Sephardi.
We always read that around Purim time. We always read that parsha around Purim time.
Right.
It said there that Moshe Rabbeinu put the mask.
Yeah, about that.
Right. Okay. So now okay. So Mari Mintz, he writes a tshuva saying that for the last few years we see that there was such a thing that the friends of the chassan would wear women's clothing, would dress up like women, and the friends of the kala would dress up like men, and that was the shtick of the day to bring to Simchas Chassan the kala. And he writes that greater people than me were there, and they didn't bat an eye, they didn't complain, they didn't make a big deal about it. So obviously it's okay. That's how we start. But then if you're looking for proof, if you're looking for some proof of it, really, I'm not even sure you even need proof. Like we already know from my Sirab, we already know from what great Rabbanim were doing at the time that they didn't complain about it. So obviously it seems okay. But okay, if you're trying to find some proof, more than that, like in actual sources, okay, so let me try to find. So he gives a Gemara in Talmud Bavli, also in Talmud Yerushalmi. What happened was there's part of this issue of acting like the opposite gender is also not just in wearing the opposite gender's clothing, is also acting like that. So, for example, we're looking in a mirror. There's in Gemara, it says that we are not allowed to look, men are not allowed to look in a mirror because that's a womanly thing. We're not allowed to act womanly. Okay, but then Yerushalmi, let's skip to number 9. It says that getting a haircut by a guy, you are allowed to look in a mirror at the time. Why? Because if you don't look in the mirror, the reason is if you don't look in the mirror, then he might put the knife down to the person's neck and murder the person. So therefore, if you look in the mirror, he won't do it. Okay, first of all, like why are you even going to a barber like that? And anyways, what's the mirror going to do? Like, okay, so the person will know beforehand.
But
Yeah.
today, every barber shop, even Jewish, has mirror. Without mirror, I cannot take care.
Not everyone looks in the mirror.
I see if I'm okay.
It's like if
good here, not good.
ask her out what you need to do.
According to the reason for you to not get a haircut by a guy, you can tell them on his phone.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so right. So then what is he? So okay. So therefore we see that if you're looking in a mirror for another reason to make sure that you don't get hurt, okay, then you can look in the mirror. So now we see that this whole issue of acting like the opposite gender is really only if you're doing it to be promiscuous. But if that's not the reason why, then it is okay. So that's what Mari Mint was saying. So not just that.
What did the Talmud Bavli bring then proof from
Yeah, he says that there's a difference between Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah. And also if he also brings like if you're looking in a mirror so that you look presentable,
Yeah.
not to be woman, I don't even know what that. I mean, isn't that what womanly is? To
Attractive.
care to yeah. So
In other words, you shouldn't be trying to be looking attractive for women because that's what women do. They try and look attractive.
meaning okay, the whole issue seemingly is, or not seemingly, but the whole issue is that Hashem created us a certain way, so we shouldn't try to be someone else. If Hashem created us in a certain way with certain talents, so we should use our talents. So if we're going to be acting like someone else, for example, acting like a different gender, so that seems like we're negating the truth of the way Hashem created us with certain talents, within a certain box, and then we need to work within that box to use all our talents for the way Hashem wants us to act. Okay, so then not just that, we also see that in the family of Rebbe, which with the family of Rebbe, they would actually look in the mirror at all times. Why? For a few reasons. For example, that they had to know Greek. They had to know Greek. They had to act in a Greek way because they were mingling with the authorities, with the Greek with the monarchy. Right? They would deal with the Roman government. So they needed to better their appearance for those things. In other words, we see from here, Mari Mintz shows that if it's not to act promiscuous, okay, then it's okay. So if that's the case, getting back to the mitzvah of Simchas Chasim B'Kala, if the reason to wear clothing of the opposite gender is to bring to happiness of Chasim and Kala, if that's the case, so then for sure it's okay. So that's what the Mari Mintz gives as a proof. The same way, a mirror is also if it's for other reasons, either to keep us safe from the barber or to look presentable for the government, then it's okay.
The barber maybe was 1,000 years ago, but nowadays nobody uses a knife for getting the haircuts. They go even. It's not.
Even a scissors, you could stab a person in the throat, causing trouble with scissors too.
Like, can you use a knife?
Shave. He has a knife to shave.
I'm saying boy. You're right, Jewish people shouldn't.
Right. Okay. So let's go to what Shulchan Aruch, what it says. So Mashanaga Lilovich Partzipim Purim V'Gever Levish Simchas Isha. Well, we were talking about Isha Kligever. Ein Isser, it's not an issue because you're doing it for nothing other than a simcha ba'alma. The same too also he says by wearing kilayim derabanan, like shatnez. If it's only shatnez midrabanan, that's also okay. But he says v'yesh oimrim. Some say the asur that it's not allowed. But he says aval minig. What we actually do, he actually says that the minig Ashkenaz is to actually be okay with wearing clothing of the opposite gender on Purim and wearing levish wearing putting on
What
Kollel
the Rambam said
Darabanan.
about it? You say anything about
I didn't see.
Risha?
I didn't see. The same too also he says that there is a minig to steal on Purim because you're not really stealing, you're just trying to get people trying to make a joke. Even though there is a from stealing even just for a joke. You're not even allowed to do that, right? It's in Shulchan Aruch that you're not allowed to steal. Just by the way, if you didn't know, you're not allowed to steal and then say afterwards, "Oh, I didn't mean it." You know, even that is not allowed. Meaning, it's not allowed even if you don't mean it. It's just not allowed. But on Purim, he says that we do see that people do it. Why? Because it's going to lead to jokes. It's kind of like a joke. I don't know. It never happened to me that I thought when someone stole something from me, it made me happier or something when the person said afterwards that oh, it was just a joke. If anything, that makes me more more angry. Like, what are you? I'm just chopped liver.
It said earlier by weddings also they used to steal for a joke to make simcha for the Chatan and Kala.
Right, by the Rebbe and Rebbitzon's wedding, there was a lot of things. There were a lot of pick upon, but that wasn't just for jokes. A lot of people lost a lot of things. That was in Warsaw back in the day. Okay, so but then, like what we said before, the story with Rabbi Hertz, it says here, however, you're not allowed. You're only allowed to do what the local elders permit. So what he said that you need to ask the Rav, he's actually just quoting the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so now let's bring a few proofs saying that it is okay, that you are allowed to, and some more later Achronim, more contemporary saying that it's not allowed. So the Mishnah Brura says,
What number are we?
The stealing that.
Number 11.
I know that I don't let my son doing that, and he understands and doesn't do that. But and it's a lot of families, it is done.
right.
So it's that.
I mean, it makes sense to think that we shouldn't be teaching our children that stealing is like a funny or a good thing, especially not like during the Seder when everything is very like boxed, like everything's perfect. Everything's exactly the way it's supposed to be. And then what? And then we just play a game of stealing. It seems kind of even if, especially with children where they're very perceptive and very in French, you're right. And like Tmimos, where they take things seriously. Like it's not like, oh, you're gonna say, oh, it was just like as a joke to make people fun. Like they don't think like that. Well, what do you mean? If then it seems like stealing is okay. But still, we could obviously give presents for saying the Torah well, for saying saying Magid nicely, and saying Manishtana nicely. So the whole thing of giving presents, that's also. I mean, the Rambam himself says that that's the way to start teaching our children to do the right thing. So okay. So let's go to the Mishnah Brura. He says. He quotes really both ways. On one hand, to say that we shouldn't argue, we shouldn't we shouldn't complain to people that they're doing the wrong thing if they're wearing clothing of the opposite gender during Purim. But on the other hand, he says that some hold some say that we should be far away from this. We shouldn't act this way. And the Taz, but on the other hand, we also see that the Taz says that the minig is to be okay with such things, even though some say that it's not okay. Like, for example, he says the Bach says he says that the Taz says that really it's better, even though it's possible that to be okay, still it's better not to do it. He's happy when people are not doing such a thing. He gives a bracha to those that are not going to do it because it might lead chas v'shalom to something not okay. So it's better not even to get into such situations where people will be will be wearing clothing of the opposite gender. Okay, but then so he kind of gives wiggle room to say it's okay, but still we shouldn't do. But then on the other hand, the Bir Hagra says that it says that it's asur, and the Aruch HaShulchan says that really all these people that are saying that back in the day that it was okay, they were, and he kind of negates the possibility that if it's okay then, now it's also okay. He says that back in the day we were able to differentiate from just things to bring to simcha from those things that will bring us to do the wrong things. So therefore, in these times, we shouldn't even get into such issues. So we shouldn't even do that. Also, but also on a side note, we should also for the same reason what we said before about stealing the afikoman in regards to children, it's a good idea also, even though it's not a halachic issue per se, we should also look out to make sure that our children are wearing clothing of someone or something that could lead them to be more shomer Torah mitzvah. Let's say to wear a costume of Mordechai or Esther, things like that, instead of wearing a costume of Haman or something. Or Achashverosh. Technically, you could say Achashverosh is like. But you could wear even if you're going to wear a king costume, even if it says Achashverosh, on the page. But you could say you're wearing you're really wearing clothing of Mordechai because Mordechai wore had a king's costume himself when Haman dressed him up like right on a horse. Or let's say if you're going to wear a horse, you're going to be looking like a horse. You could say that you're the horse of Mordechai instead of saying that you're the horse of, let's say, of Haman. And same thing with other things, because children are like a little tree that everything that the way we act to our children and the way we teach our children has a lot of repercussions for their entire life. Just like a tree, that if you move it one way or the other way, even if it's a very small difference, a millimeter this way, a millimeter that way, but when it grows older, when the tree gets bigger, it could be crooked this way, crooked that way. So it's we should these are important things to say, to think about. Yeah.
It was just together.
That's me. Okay. Yeah. Hatzlacha Rabba in a Freilich from Purim and a Freilich from Zion Oder.
Mishe נכנס אדם, ארבים, ארבים בשמחה. Mishe נכנס
This is, by the way, this is a Sephardi singing Ashkenazi songs. You don't have the no sign. See, look, there was a Kollel of this fear.
Achdut.
Yes, that's very
It's a
important.
time to make achdut.
Yeah. Yeah.